Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief. Not recap. This is the Daily Brief. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday, TGIF, and all that. Let's just make sure YouTube's working. Not recap. This is the Daily. Yeah, it is. Good. So that's all working away. As I said, happy Friday morning, Friday the 27th of September. We're just about to kiss September goodbye. And actually, this would be really interesting because Monday is the 30th, so technically the last day of the third quarter is going to be Monday the 30th. We should see a bunch of position squaring heading into that event. So we probably over the weekend here probably want to do like first 2 week studies and just see what kind of correlation that is. And then of course heading into Q4, we probably want to keep a close eye on where the money managers think we are in the economic cycle through the first 2 weeks of the quarter. Interesting too, if I'm not mistaken, this is U.S. government's fiscal year end, so which often explains why the markets act a bit wonky through this event. And then, of course, we've got October coming up. I'm not quite sure what the status of Brexit is and all that, but if I understand correctly, we could have some fireworks coming out of Europe through the month of October. I suppose to start off, not a bad idea. Just do a couple introductions. We got a couple special treats here for you today. First and foremost, the Duke of Albuquerque driving the bus, keeping us on the road. How you doing this morning, Kevin?
I'm doing pretty good.
Excellent. Good to hear. And as a special treat, Colin accidentally, in quotation marks, threw his back out. So he wasn't able to go to work here today, and so he volunteered to come on and talk to everybody about what he's seeing in crypto. How you doing this morning, Colin?
Well, yeah, you called it, man. I was at the gym yesterday and did an awkward lift. Wasn't paying attention, I guess, and just hurt my back pretty bad. So
Oh
got some
boy.
muscle relaxants. So if I'm slurring, there's your. That's why. But as a silver lining, I thought it'd be nice to jump on here and chat with you.
Yeah, that's cool. It's added bonus, added
Mm-hmm.
benefit. And actually, maybe you can even tell us about your little inverse ETH trade, I think it was, that you did
Oh
recently. I
yeah,
was really
yeah, the
impressed with that.
futures one. I'll pull that up before
Yeah,
I keep
that
going
was
here.
really, and I didn't even know they had inverse cryptos. So that like for people who don't really like to short, and frankly speaking, I'm not really the biggest fan of openly shorting. I've seen absolute disasters happen when that happens.
Yeah, they have these
Um,
bear tokens over there. I could definitely touch on those today. That'd be great.
yeah, well, it's a win-win all around when Colin's around. So awesome.
Appreciate it.
Um, maybe I'll just do 5, 10 minute just brief overview of what I'm seeing in the market. We always start off risk on, risk off. Fascinating, considering we're coming into the end of Q3. And also, like I said, the U.S. dollar and U.S. government fiscal year end. Everything's down today, it seems. Both risk on and risk off. Bonds, gold, yen as our risk off proxies. And it was interesting. I was sort of noticing out of the corner of my eye the yen just hasn't caught that same bid the way the gold did the other day. And the bonds, they seem to, catch a bit of a bid here, but the yen just, really didn't really get going. I did see, yesterday we had the gold working its way a bit higher. I did see the yen just sort of floundering. And then the gold said, to hell with it. I guess if the yen's not going to rally, I don't want to rally either. So they've all rolled over here. I hate to beat a dead horse, but my thoughts about the blatant manipulation of the oil market here. Um, Sadly, for all crypto enthusiasts, then of course, we had some people short. And Colin, he'll talk to you about his bear proxies being long them. So, anybody who's shorting the corn or shorting crypto, way to go. But crypto definitely fell apart this week. And even stocks seem to be floundering here a bit. I did notice the econs, sort of a mixed message. We had basic information come out today here. Durable goods orders up 0.2%. Market was actually looking for a fairly sizable dip. But the problem here is that a lot of this number was actually tied up with military orders, which are government. And the sort of scuttlebutt, the headline was, if we take those military orders out of the data, where the hell is it? Anyway, somewhere in all this mess, I had the news release. But in essence, the talking heads are just basically saying if you take away the military orders, the data actually was basically in line with expectations. And then, personal income, personal spending, consumer confidence, all that kind of stuff. Interesting. Income actually, fairly robust, but you can clearly see the spending from the consumer, they definitely backed off. And, in this kind of, 2/3 of the economy is consumer driven. Those are the kind of that'll be like in consumer confidence data. And my hunch is, and it'd be really interesting to see at 0.1%. Where does this thing fall? I guess that's that point there. So we haven't gotten into sort of falling off cliff kind of scenario. But you can see, January, I guess February, March, relatively strong. Potential M top here in the consumer behavior. Could be. We'll keep an eye on this. And, given everything that's going on in the rest of the world, I mean, really, that shouldn't surprise us. And then, of course, on top of the data, we've got this very interesting political situation here in North America with our neighbors down to the south. And I guess, I'm still a little bit surprised that that this Ukraine thing has got as much traction as it has. But I even saw like crazy tweets where they were saying, Mr. Trump was saying, if I go down, the whole goddamn ship's going down with me. Oh, goodness. Oh boy. Get ready, folks. We know that the cycle is very old. We know that the data is kind of iffy here. I think I even saw, I think it was this guy here. And I even retweeted it. So they're just, it's funny. They're just like spitting out the same news releases. I've talked about this image at length with you. This is a bad sign. US dollar, I think, is even still moving higher here. So it's not like that trend is changing. Yep, US dollar made a new high here this morning. So, don't be shocked if we have to go through a year or two of mess. I'm interested to see, I think you can actually make the argument on things like the S&P 500 that, there's actually M tops up here. They're not the most well-defined. I'll tell you, if we break through these lows, then all hell's going to break loose. So we still got quite a bit of wiggle room here. But, they don't call it the fall for nothing. In fact, I think technically we are actually into the fall now. I never did get my counter trend rally to buy those other puts, so I'm still waiting. Hopefully keep my, hold my breath. I would like to add to that trade, but I don't want to chase the market. As I sort of pointed out earlier, not a hell of a lot going on in individual stockland. That little Express is trying to counter trend rally back up against its highs. We'll see how this thing goes. We got like one free position here, just doing its thing. And I got a whole bunch of those free positions, so I'm not really in a hurry to do anything with them. And I do understand that some people are, a bit skittish about what to do with the free positions. And, I always say, best thing to do if you're in doubt is just get out. But, no, really important that you sort of plan ahead of time what it is you're going to do. And then just simply stick to your plan. I don't see anything other than this EXPR, which really isn't doing anything here to comment on. Everything else is just sort of floundering around here. Very directionless at the moment, in my opinion. And I hate to say it, but I would actually make the argument that Bitcoin and crypto look very similar. I think I'm about ready to actually start putting this algo into practice. I just don't know whether to do it with TRI money or do it with my own money. I still don't have the tools on this site to do it TRI-wise very professionally. Just waiting on the team to get this silly website going. I think I might just start running this myself, just privately, but I'll report how that goes to you. That's sort of just a conversation with TRI and stuff. But the most recent algo signal, and it's interesting how algo was firing off bearish signals here. We had a little bit of a bullish flash here. It didn't really last too long. Then more bear signal, bear, 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 bear. And we got more bear through here. I mean, a little too late to chase the trade in here. I sort of told you before, I was actually pretty pleased to see that this bear signal, ironically enough, it never really did have the stop broken. And, we talked recently about how I got, flushed initially on that move right there. But, more bear signals, more bear signals. And then we had that inside bar failure, which just absolute textbook right here. It's so beautiful. Here we are at 7,900. And, I saw Joshua last night in the lounge posting, I got a bearish bot set up. And I think his bearish bot, I did see a bunch of people on the site. I had posted one this morning that I saw. And just to finish off this talk about the algo. Try, if you're going to run this kind of system, try to sell like part of the position at 2 to 1. That was this part right here. Although it keeps jumping over to that other thing. Fudge. Anyway, 2 to 1 there. And then on this stop on the remaining position, you can see you can just stair step your way down. So I think the stop on the remaining's got to be against that high there. But there's nothing to do on this thing right now. And you can see lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. So it's just big hurry up and just don't do nothing. And then I also noticed this morning, which I thought was really interesting, and I think I have it over here. Yeah. And I saw people like Joshua, I think Andrew, I saw a few other people posting these as well. We're getting now new bearish bot setups coming in. Excuse me. Interestingly enough, the bearish bot setup here, you can see 1 high, 2 highs, 3 highs, 4 highs, 5 highs. Jesus, there's a hell of a lot of highs here. 6 highs. Look how the bot set up, just the 25 level set up so nicely off of these 2 lows here. I went there. Oh, excuse me. And I was sort of saying this to Joshua in the lounge last night, and somebody responded to it. Frankly speaking, you just don't know what the hell's going to happen in the marketplace. I think I mean I could make an argument going both directions, right? I think I could make an argument that where the hell are we here? AB equals CDs have been hit, so I would temper my bearish enthusiasm. But at the same time, too, I think you can also make the argument that Mountain Man levels, 7,200 and change, totally realistic for the market to head into there. And notice this bot target is 72.20. So it's a great analogy that you just don't know what the hell's going to happen in this crazy world. I could make an argument both ways. No, the bear's done for now. Or, well, no, I could see another push lower. I'll tell you one thing for certain. We definitely, at least I definitely don't have any buy signals per se here. This is going to take some time to clean up. So I think if anything, kind of like the stock market, very difficult to get too bullish on anything here. And actually, just kind of a final thought. I sort of did this in the free video yesterday. I'm not quite sure if this really even answers this question or not, but it was kind of an interesting conversation. Somebody suggested yesterday that I should throw on the correlation study between the stock market and crypto. And I found this Kendall correlation. I have no idea. From what I understand, Kendall is sort of like one of the there's two schools of thought on sort of ways to study correlation. I can't remember the terms. I was sort of reading up on it last night. And Kendall is sort of one of the approaches. And I don't know whether, the blue line is like Bitcoin or, and this is GBTC, the ETF proxy. And one line is the IWM, which is the Russell 2000. And does the fact that they're sort of moving along like this, does that mean that they're correlated? Or is it like 1.0 means correlation and -1 means inversely correlated? I'm not quite sure how this works. But I have been sort of speculating, postulating, contemplating, what other word can I come up with, about the correlation between crypto and the junior stock market of late. I think there is some sort of connection, but I don't know whether I have it correct or not. So anyway, somebody on YouTube suggests I take a look at this, and if somebody on the site uses this tool or understands it, it might be worth us having a conversation about it. So, all right, so that's the kind of market it is. Like when it comes to things like altcoins, as we had sort of said, they've broken down. I'm not really looking at anything there. And then sort of the final piece to all this, and you can see our little express has petered out here. I have on one crypto proxy in the stock market, and it flirted with disaster yesterday. And it's back to flirting with disaster. And so just FYI in the stock market, and really, ironically enough, this is the only position that's really close to getting stopped out, is if we go through this 176 on Riot, I'm gone. I'll just blow it out. But I did notice that there's some guys defending the market here at $1.80 on this thing, so we'll see if that holds. If it doesn't, I mean, you can see internally this thing looks pretty tough. So, but this is about the only sort of trade per se in crypto that I've got on right now, and it's looking a little iffy right now. So. Okay, so that's sort of my market overview. Not a hell of a lot to get excited about, but nonetheless, it is what it is. As we had said earlier, Colin had reached out yesterday, I guess it was, or maybe it was this morning, and said that he had some time here and he'd love to come on and chat with the group and tell us what he's thinking and what he's seeing. And I asked him earlier, he had a ETH bear trade, but it was through a long vehicle, like an inverse ETF in crypto, if there is such a thing. So I asked him if he could maybe walk us through that trade, or maybe just talk a little bit about it. So, Colin, are you with us here?
I am here with you.
All right. And do you have a screen to share?
I do indeed. Let me remind me again how I do all that. Bottom
On
right.
this Hangout, I think if you go, I'll stop presenting. So now it's done. If you take your mouse and go down to the lower right hand side,
Oh,
there should
present
be
now.
a
Yeah.
button that says present now.
Let's see. 3x. ETH Bear. There we go.
All right, it says Colin S is presenting, so let's see what happens when we click on his. Maybe it's over here, and then we gotta go like that. And there it is. So Gann angles and everything. All right.
Yeah. So I've got a few things I wanted to get into. I'll definitely touch on that ETH Bear. But I think just to frame today's conversation, I wanted to talk a little bit about something I'm dealing with as a trader, which is, feeling a little scattered lately as I got back into teaching and finding a new balance. And it brought up a thought in my head sort of about like the spectrum of how you can organize your trading plan. If you hunt one setup on one asset and that is your entire plan, I mean, hey, if it's profitable for you, great. But that would be like the extreme simplified end of a spectrum, right? Whereas then just say you're hunting every possible setup ever on every single possible asset, right? That would be the extreme other end of that spectrum, which is absurd. And so really, what I've been thinking about sort of on the journal front lately is trying to find out where I fall on that spectrum, where I want to fall, and what's optimal. Because I got to be honest with you, I've been watching this Bitcoin sort of pennant with you guys all summer, and was definitely leaning to bearish. Right, I had this chart from months ago. Well, actually, mid August, I made this and had been just kind of tracking it. So I had this spot picked out for so long, and for the most part, I didn't really short here. I was thankfully into Tether from around 10.8 from this move here, this double top here. So I tethered up, but for the most part, was kind of deer in the headlights, just watching. And what I realized in my journaling afterwards was that a lot of that I think has to do with just trying to do too many things at once. Getting onto FTX, the exchange, trying to switch my portfolio over to like trading versus USD once I tethered here. And in the end of it all, I ended up, not finding the short setup here that would have, obviously paid off great this week. So as a trader, I'm not sweating it too hard. Obviously my, portfolio like BTC balance got a nice unrealized P&L gain in it right now from that. But so I just thought I'd frame today's trade with her talk with, sort of, this ETH Bear trade went great. It was really more of a sample. I think I only had like a handful of these tokens. Whatever, a trade's a trade is a trade. But as far as like, what I want to talk about today going on to Bitcoin versus alts, I think it's important to, somebody in the lounge, they said today, wow, those W's aren't coming in versus USD. And that's absolutely right. And so if you're trading versus USD, like you always say, you should really wait for a weekly W if you're looking to get into the little lady stuff and some nice, like, mid long term investment stuff. So just keep in mind that for myself, I'm trading versus Bitcoin with a part of my portfolio, right? So like Bitcoin could go down, anywhere it wants to, and I'm not really going to care. If the alt trade I just made went up 27% and I closed it and made some Bitcoin, but Bitcoin dropped 5% and I actually lost USD overall, like that, I'm counting that as a win for that part of my portfolio. So just, I think framing the conversation today with that is important. So without further ado, I will get into this, which is a bear token. So it's a 3x short Ethereum token. It is on FTX, which is a new exchange that just came out in the summer. Actually, I heard about it from some of the guys at TRI when we were out west. And I checked it out recently. And it's gotten a lot of interesting utility that I want to discuss today. First of all, there's indexes on there. So you can find mid cap and shitcoin indexes and sort of the majors, and you can chart them. And so that can give you some nice overview. They got some perps here that I brought up, but let's just say like mid and go down to FTX. So this is actually, yeah, mid perp. So you've got a perp swap futures product. Where is it? There we go. And you can use this sort of along with, the Bitcoin dominance stuff. If you want to so I mean, as you can see, versus USD, the mid caps just dropped off the face of the earth after they looked like they might have had a breakout here, right? So FTX does have a lot of derivatives products, and I've been sort of charting them lately, having a little fun with them. Not trading them too heavily at all actually, but so let's talk a little bit about this ETH bear token. So they have a token for all the majors really, and there's ETH bear, ETH bull, and it's just a token that represents ETH price, but at a 3x sort of velocity. So it's the equivalent of a 3x long on ETH, or in this case, it's the ETH bear, so an ETH a short. So what I noticed was Ethereum had printed a short Tanganator on the 4 hour. It had just enjoyed a nice move up. If you zoom way out to sort of the daily time frame, we had come down, printed a double bottom off of this sweet spot, and then moved up. So we tapped this 0.5 beautifully, almost to a T, and then kind of put in bearish market structure here while the Tango was firing short. So here I was on FTX, and I noticed the exact inverse almost, right? We had the move down. We had printed this cute little W. We had some Tango longs firing. So once this fired up, I bought the next dip. And again, literally, I think 5 of these tokens. I just bought a couple. And I actually had some pretty juicy orders down here that never hit right around the neckline and that. So either way, as you can see here, I mean, this thing just mooned, flew up. So it's again, same as if you had a 3x short on ETH. So it's really whatever you're comfortable with. It's an interesting derivative product. And my comment to you, Brian, in the lounge the next day was longing things is a lot more comfortable, I think, for a lot of people. It's nice to see the uppity in the market, even if it's a bear token and it's a derivative of a short. So just something to think about. It crashed right through this Kavarkanator up here, and I closed out my position right around the sweet spot here. Just had a bid working, or an ask, I should say. So
yeah, sick trade, dude.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a clean trade. Again, small, and I think overall, I left a lot personally as a trader. I left a lot to be desired, given how I feel like I was all over this sort of GAN thing, and I was so excited for it to finally break out of this pennant. So I'm moving through that this week emotionally.
Well, remember too, though, cash is a position. So
yes.
Technically, if you, I heard you say that you raised a whole bunch of tethers. Now, tether, that's another conversation altogether.
Yeah, that's a different one.
But, if you're saying that you raised a bunch of cash, well, technically that is a position. And that's such a hard lesson. When I was a retail broker, oh, man, having cash in a client's account was the worst thing possible. Because they would just be like, I just spend it. I can't have the cash in there. You might as well just cut me a check and I'll go and blow it on my girlfriend, right? So, but, we as traders here, I think, I think you can make the argument that you raise cash as a position.
Yeah, no, and that I mean, to be honest, on the day of the dump, I was excited, because I was fairly heavy in tether, and I just thought, oh yay, finally it's gone down. But it's in the dust settling in the coming days, and I started doing the math, and I was like, wait, why was I not? I didn't have any kind of real short position on other than this little ETH bear sample thing. So
I'll tell you though. I mean, honestly, Colin, you've heard me say this before, all of you on this site, the shorter trade is usually the harder trade. And, ask Andrew about all of the stress he went through having to stick to his short. And you have, who's that guy that went on the silly internet the other day? I mean, the guy doesn't really have a technical analysis or even a trader background, but he was jumping up and down and screaming for $300,000 Bitcoin and
oh god, I don't know, but
I mean, so maybe like remember, having an open short is an open-ended liability. And you got
Mhm.
this guy going, well, Bitcoin's going to 300,000 next week. So you had an open short working on Bitcoin, and you got to sit there in the face of that and go, no, I'm just going to stick with my short. That was very, very tough.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
would make the argument, like they say, right? The writer trade is usually the harder trade. I put out a tweet the other day where my general feeling was the price was ready to drop. You didn't know what was going to happen, but I asked, who's going to feel more pain here if on a price
Mhm.
movement. And ironically enough, that's the job of the market, right? Is to inflict as much pain on as many people as much of the time as possible. So I got
Yeah,
the
I mean,
feeling
and
that
we had the backed, news. I
yeah,
mean,
I think that
New York
became
Stock
a sell the
Exchange.
news, eh? Fuck me.
Yeah, I mean, the same guys who own the New York Stock Exchange basically put out a Bitcoin future. I mean, that was incredible news. And I would argue that if you look back into this, earlier spring breakout, that there was some sort of alignment with that sort of becoming an official announcement. I don't have the exact date, but whenever that was announced, yeah, that definitely was probably a big part of this catalyst up. And it was
Yeah.
it was a pretty, yeah, I think all things considered, the probability of us breaking south on that consolidation were much higher than north. And
But
again, I
just
would
don't beat yourself up for not being
no,
like more
no, and I
short. The
yeah,
fact that you raised some cash, I think that's it's a good start. And the fact that you were able to actually make some money on the dump through your little bear ETFs. I mean,
yeah, that
pat
the bear.
yourself on the back. I don't
Yeah, no,
think you should beat yourself
yeah,
up.
I should clarify that the point of bringing all that up wasn't to come on here and be like, well, I didn't short it. It was more just to talk about my takeaway, which was really ironing out and focusing in on less in the market, so that when you have a strong lean or you have a strong narrative, you can really focus on it and optimize your outcomes, as opposed to trying to trade 600 alts across USD and across BTC and all these derivatives. You can
Yeah.
get overwhelmed, and I think for me this week I felt that I lost focus a little bit through the
But
noise.
also too, didn't you just like have a whole new school term and stuff start and
Oh yeah.
stuff?
No, that's yeah. So I was just more just like
You got a
doing some
lot on your
verbal
plate, man.
journaling today, because I think, and I know that happens, and I've talked to a few people that have reached out to me and said, like how do you decide what to trade in the market? What do you commodities and futures and stocks and forex, like how do you land on something? And then it's so overwhelming for people. So I thought I would just share sort of my own personal reflection on that this week. Was that me, I don't really trade stocks, but I did just open an Interactive Brokers account. I'm still waiting on the application. But this week I just feel like I've been a little fuzzy. So I reset a few things. I've set up a few sort of fresh balances, and I'm feeling invigorated and ready. And frankly, I'm
Cool.
just excited that it broke out of this consolidation, because now we're going to see volatility back in the market, and that's where, as traders, you can get those really juicy moves and the setups, and I think everyone was a little tired of just that tiny, tiny, tiny range we got into. So this is exciting, and I should really get into sort of my thesis going forward. Um, is that I think, again, versus alts, Bitcoin, versus alts, we could be looking at some rallies coming up, and it's not about crystal ball and I'm going to predict the future, but I really like to engage in the high time frame analysis of the market to get a feel for the next trend, and trying to catch that trend and spot that trend and see the signs early, so that if there is some sort of alt rally, you can park your capital somewhere near the bottom of it or whatever. And that's been my goal, and my focus on the market is generally from a psychology standpoint, because that's my background. I don't have a finance background, but so I've drawn up a few charts here. We've got Bitcoin dominance. We know we had the nice little market structure fail here last month, or I should say earlier this month, and you got to figure it's not going to come straight down. If we are going to see that, there's going to be some bounces, and we got a nice clean little bearish retest here the other day, probably right around that dump where Bitcoin dominance spiked. Kind of confusing actually why it dumped so hard. I guess the others dumped harder, and now we're back here. So it'll be interesting to watch this level here, which is an old support. We break down from here. we'll likely see something happen here in ETH, which is now looking to move up in the last couple of days. I drew this GAN up on ETH this morning, and I'm hoping to find some sort of a pattern or some signal that I can get an idea of where it's headed. I'd like to see it roll down this arc, right? Get into a nice 786 entry. I think that would shake out a lot of people. That would definitely sweep some of these lows. That could be, to go with this GAN, where is it? This guy here. So we had Bitcoin dump down into this arc. I mean, almost picture perfect, right? This is drawn off the daily, but I've lowered it to a 12-hour just to get a little more detail. Rode up the arc just a little bit, failed through again. And just looking at this one GAN study itself, you can see here, we did the same kind of thing, right? Broke through the arc, rode it up, trended down to the next arc, stopped on it at first, broke through, rode it up, trended down to the next one, right? Lost this support, and then boom, break down. So if we could get into here next week and hold the line down here, maybe sweep this low, get one last little, shakeout dump. This actually reminds me a little bit of Elliott waves, which I'm not, by far studied on, but you find that you get that 3 impulse moves with 2 corrective waves, right? So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 could be that. And then we get our ABC right up the arc. So that's the kind of thing I'm thinking about going forward. And if that's the case, and Bitcoin's going to have that last move and then ride up, that could be our catalyst for, ETH riding down versus Bitcoin. And then, who knows from there. So that's sort of what I'm watching as far as like the high time frames, trying to spot these correlations in the market. So what I spent the week doing is I noticed there was some weekly W's. I think you put out actually a comment in the thing. You said, somebody find me a chart that looks like this in crypto. So naturally, I'm just like, yeah, I really want to try to find that for you. So I've been hunting weekly W's, and I found a few, believe it or not. And I thought I'd share.
These are versus Bitcoin, though, eh?
These are versus Bitcoin, and so that's sort of what I was saying earlier. Is like it's important to keep in mind that I'm probably 80% sitting in USD right now, or like Tether or USD stablecoins, and so there's definitely some risk in having Bitcoin if we know that quote unquote no, but like we feel like on the higher time frames, it's probably got to come down and wash this up around the 6Ks, and I would say at least like get into here at some point, maybe up here, ride this down. So yeah, tax selling season. So is it time to plant your USD in the market and try to grow your USD? I don't know. I have no comment on that. This is for me, for a Binance account that I have that is sitting in BTC indefinitely and just trading against that. But you will be interested to know that, in fact, in WPR's case, the USD chart just printed a W as well on the weekly. It's actually the only example of this I could find. I found it just now while you were presenting. It's a little more clear on the line graph. Look at that. So, I mean, that's the weekly on the USD chart. Up, down, up, breakout, retest. So that could be something to look at if you're looking for.
Over here.
So it's a WPR. It's like a decentralized power grid kind of thing, tokenized electricity, so to speak. Now, interestingly enough, and this is sort of where this concerns me actually with this one, is last week, I believe, or 2 weeks ago, Tika Tiwari of Palm Beach Group, he was kind of like folklore back in 2017. He used to post these monthly analyses, like 20-page reports. Really good research. But every time he posted his pick of the month, the coin would pump like crazy. Now, he put out, I met the guy in person at a conference once. He's actually a really chill guy. He's a really funny guy. But anyways, I don't think he's like an outright scammer or anything. But a lot of people like to call him a pump and dump artist, which he laughed at. He's like, dude, I've got my stuff in cold storage all over the world in banks. He's like, I'm not selling it on these little 100% pumps. He's investing. So anyways, no comment on the quality of his research, but I will say that WPR was one of the ones he named. The last, I think, a week ago, he named 5. Was it CND? There was 5 of them. Crypt something. What's it called? Crypterium was one of them. So you'll probably see here it pumped as well. So That worries me in the sense that is this weekly W just a function of that little move up and it closed above because of that? I don't know. Can't comment on that. That's the only caveat with this particular coin. But oh god, I made a Bitfinex chart. Those are so ugly. Let's see.
I guess just my question is, does this
Syndicator? Oh, and then the other one, RCN, is one of the ones he named. Oh no, Bitfinex, worst alt place ever. So I think RCN's actually been doing the best as far as look at that. So I mean, he when he calls a coin, I mean I think he called Neo at like 13 cents to his subscribers, right? So like everyone obviously follows what he says now. But so WPR was one of the ones he liked. But look at this. I mean, aside from all that, I just really like this structure. We've got the sort of W's coming in, beautiful neckline form, very clear level. Price came right in and tapped it. I'm not long on it yet. It's sort of at the top of my list for trying to find a setup that really would satisfy all the criteria. Get the dip into the RLZ. I think it's more of a tap here. Yeah. So this is one that I'm really excited about, just as far as weekly W's go. Let's go back to the weekly. There's a few here. We've got Fun. It's another one you mentioned, right? I mean, pretty clear. Higher right shoulder. Got rejected last week. Now it's above. Hasn't closed yet. So I've got sort of a check back on Sunday kind of feel.
Somebody would do some serious buying there.
What's that? Yeah. This one here. Well, here's the other thing too. Like zooming out, look at WPR. You don't see these volume bars on too many of these. For example, KNC, right? None of it. You just got the one. Even though KNC is putting in a weekly W here, closed above, got the retest on that dump the other day. IOTA, same thing, get a nice little W. Not quite as cute. Actually, the close I think was lower on the line chart. It's not quite as clean, but it's been rallying. So I mean, there's definitely some altcoins that are printing W's on a higher time frame, and it's one of those things that, like, I'm excited because I trade versus Bitcoin for part of my stuff, and it's definitely I think it's time to pay attention. It's always time to pay attention, but especially now that Bitcoin is finally broken down. Because if you think back, oh darn, I lost that other GAN. But what was the story in the spring? Right, remember alts were just getting wrecked, right? We were like just destroyed through this, and everyone says, oh, as soon as Bitcoin hangs out, we can all see, we can all get some Bitcoin or altcoin gains. Well, I mean, even through here, they didn't really. We had some little rallies, but nothing crazy. Well, finally, Bitcoin says, okay, my trend up is over. And what you've got is, on the flip side of that, you've got all of these altcoins, and their trend has been down. So and again, this is just the yo-yo between Bitcoin and altcoins, right? Money sloshing around in the market. So if we are to suggest that there is a trend in Bitcoin that is ending and reversing down to a downtrend, then it stands to reason, and we're seeing bearish signs in the Bitcoin dominance, which is sort of the yo-yo master. And then now we've got weekly W's coming in on alts versus Bitcoin, right? Like, I'm just seeing a lot of that confluence where I want to be sure that I'm ready for it. And, if it's going to come in as a setup, then I want to trade it. So versus USD, again, that's like you said, and I would tend to agree with you. That may be 6 months away. Really want to see where Bitcoin's going to bottom at. Quote unquote bottom, where if we come down here and clean up this chart, 42 is actually a level that I saw like way back. I don't know if I'd say it now, but it's the Kavarkanator at this point. But this breakout here, this just looked like a weak, sort of stilts almost. I find charts tend to like to clean that up, almost like a gap. That would be a nice little capitulation, right? New lows, and then maybe reverse around there. Who knows? But until that happens, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of versus USD Ws. But I'll be damned if I'm not going to keep a close eye on these alts as they maybe reverse their trend against Bitcoin alone. So we've got WPR. The volume is what excites me here, and the other one for volume, because a lot of these don't, right? I mean, this one had a little bit through the downtrend. No, actually that one did, but again, it's trending down. Check this out. This one's blowing my mind. Look at Aeon. Like down, just wrecked. And the volume is just like, I mean, talk about some internal signs of accumulation. This one got me pretty excited. Does not have a weekly W though. So it's less about, it's trying to, but the right shoulder already is lower. So I don't love that. But there's another setup coming in here, which is the LJ, right? We got this little downtrend formed off of these recent rallies in the spring, or actually no, those were summer rallies in July, and just broke out today. So we'll be watching this one. Would be nice to get some structure on the other side of this thing. But I mean, I think I posted this stuff in the lounge last night about Aeon. It's an incredibly exciting project. I've been hype on it since like 2017. I was very shocked to see how wrecked it got. A lot of it has to do with the TRS, this token distribution schedule, and basically they raised $20 million at their ICO. They decided, or at their pre-sale, and they decided that was enough. So they didn't want to go on and raise more at the actual ICO. So they took all those tokens that they were going to sell, and they just gave them away. And it was through like a smart contract, and it was every month for 12 months that they were just basically giving out the tokens to whoever had sent in some Aeon to this smart contract. So as you can see, that created an incredible amount of selling pressure. Someone posted an interesting little chart on Twitter yesterday on a comment I made, basically saying like coins in circulation versus total supply, what percentage is already out in circulation. And Aeon was near the top. It's something like 73, whereas a lot of other projects like IOTA, and they're like 23% in circulation. So you can expect a high inflation. Whereas this one, they've kind of distributed most. And they have a big release coming up in November. Unity Protocol, which is like they're going from proof of work, which is their own chain that they run on now. They're going to be switching to proof of stake, proof of work, a hybrid, but not quite as simple as that. So that's been their big next release. And the CEO just confirmed on Twitter. He said, stay tuned. ... November ... So I have some reason to believe that leading into November, this could see some hype. I mean, even a 200 MA tag, as you can see here, like. Be nice to get like maybe a retest POC and on this downtrend line, get some structure there, risk to lows. I mean, look at that too. Like this thing's got some insane potential, just given how wrecked it is. So who knows? And on the higher time frame, I know you like to draw those 50%ers. I mean, it's things like 28x or something up to its high time frame. So this is one I'm watching. Not auto long by any means, but like look at that thing. Nice SR level here. It's just kind of insane. So I'm definitely going to plant a little bit there. I've still got a free position in it from 2017, full disclosure, but I mean, that's long since wrecked. So yeah, as far as names to chew on, Benjamin, I feel you. It's been a long winter with this one. I think my brother's girlfriend actually, he's like, I want to get into crypto in like mid 2018. I was like, okay, well, Aeon's cool. I think her $1,000 is worth $50 now. So she's loving that. LOL. So LJ possibly in the making. Daily W's already confirmed. Dipped in. That 786 was sexy. I'm a little sad I didn't hit that, but whatever. And then just a bunch of RLZs right now. So really the big story is ETH. Is it going to just touch this arc and go? I mean, it's definitely got a bullish bias on the GAN until it crosses this 45 angle. But if it rides down this arc into this, oh, buddy, be watching that one. And then, I've got some nice high time frame things to keep an eye on here.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Not a whole lot of trading, really just a lot of analysis and watching this high, yo-yo between Bitcoin and alts. If it's going to shift here, then it'd be nice to know about it on day one or week one, so you don't miss the first leg up.
Sure.
It's hard to frame your risk, right? If you miss a leg up, and then especially with the bear, you're like, wow, was that it? And I'm just going to get dumped on. Like, getting in on that first leg, if you can spot those breakouts like you've taught us, is really powerful stuff. It makes it a lot easier to sort of, trail your stops up and not get so worried about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Colin's given everybody who's interested in alts a bit of a shopping list here. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, and Benjamin, thank you for posting that. Link, RVN, TNT, CND. Those are the ones that he named in his thing.
Right.
And to be fair, they're all really good coins, so we'll see if he's right.
Yeah, we should create a maybe like a little matrix or something like that of just names and see how they do here.
Yeah, you see, he named TNT, same thing, actually right after the Tango fired. He's been getting a lot of love on his names here. And of course, Oink. Yeah.
So TNT.
Yeah, that's like a Tyrion. They partnered with Microsoft. I think that was their initial hype way back in the day, but I'm not sure what that all is about. Biz tech or something. I don't know. Don't really know much about TNT. Link, I know and like.
Just sort of sitting there.
Actually, Andrew and I were looking at Link the day that it was sitting on the 786, going, let's wait for some structure. Well, it didn't give us much time, but man, just parked on that 786. We were staring at it that day. It's good times. But you know what? It's a big move. I wouldn't expect it's going to just take off from here. Could easily get a 702 here maybe for an entry on that retest. Be nice.
Crazy. So that's your link right there, and you're studying all these versus Bitcoin, you said?
Yeah, purely Bitcoin again, sitting heavy in Tether because I do expect, whether Bitcoin moves up here or not, it's probably just trending down for a little bit. So, not.
And on Binance, is that where you like to trade these?
Yeah, Binance is my go-to for now. I mean, they've got a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline, or releasing. Their margin. I tried their margin stuff. It's interesting. It's a little complicated. Not too fond of it, to be honest, but it's there. I mean, you can leverage up your position.
There was an exchange that you were all jazzed about a couple months ago. What was it? It was
Beaxy. Yeah, BEAXY. I actually just got off a call with their head of marketing a couple days ago, just giving me the sort of the rundown of what's coming and what's been going on. They basically
BEAXY.
Yeah, let's see if I can pull it up.
Are they on TradingView?
No, they're not on TradingView yet. They actually only just got their coin listed. Well, they got a little rally today. So this has been their release, right? I mean, pretty standard for new coins. The problem with them is that they got screwed over by market makers. They had got these guys lined up. They had actually paid some of them, hired some of them. But market makers, they're just traders. They're just guys who run algos. And the particular handful that they had sort of been anticipating providing them with liquidity really screwed them around. And that's just full disclosure, like what they told me. And so they've got a guy in-house now who's got a ton of experience in markets, something like 20 years market making, and he's setting up in their office now for the last month and a half, institutional accounts at all exchanges, setting up ARBs. So that is sort of in the works, and it has been for a while, and everyone's getting really frustrated with it, and that's reflected in the chart here because it's hard to trade there. There's not a lot of liquidity. You can see the books on NEO, like the XRP, they've got good liquidity. Dash, not so much. And then some of their small coins, like none, right? Just empty, right? Like you can't trade that. So that's been their big issue. That's going to be solved, according to them, in the next 4 weeks max. I think much, much sooner, probably a week or two, because it's been 4 weeks since that. I don't have anything here right now to trade other than my Beaxy. So we'll see. I'm still hopeful, still excited for them. I think, they've got a partnership with a bank in the United States. They're going to be offering fiat on and off ramps. And I don't see how with, tons of alt pairs and good liquidity and that fiat stuff that they won't at least, see some traction. And I think at 2 pennies now for their token, I think their market cap is something like 5 million. So as far as an exchange token, it's insanely low. So I wouldn't say I definitely come on here to talk about it, but it's one that I'm excited for. I mean, little old lady, you'd probably want to wait till they get a little traction, get that weekly W. But
it'd be interesting to see where the insiders of this story are along this token.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed in the last week, and I have a suspicion that it's to do with the imminent launch of this sort of liquidity solution. I have noticed in the last, after this kind of dumped down, a lot of big buys were coming in here, but it's not really showing on the volume. So who knows? I've actually removed it from my port for the last 3 weeks just because the volatility was just distressing me. And I wanted to ignore it because it is more of an investment for me. I've already been holding it for a year, so whatever. So just kind of waiting.
Well, we appreciate the update, sir.
Yeah.
We are at the top of the hour.
Oh, there you go.
Everybody at TRI just got a nice big mitt full of what's on Colin's mind today.
Thanks for having me on today, man. I rambled for a while.
And enjoy your muscle relaxants and
Yeah.
float on off into the weekend.
Hard not to. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, and appreciate it.
I would be really interested. It went by really quickly. I'm sure Benjamin, he was posting all the names, but I wouldn't mind putting together a little matrix of the coins that we reviewed here with you and your buddy who was Mr. Coin Touter or whatever.
Oh yeah, Tika.
I always like to have ideas to chew on. Right? You don't necessarily need to take a trade, but at least it gives you something to ponder. Mm-hmm. So I've got this TNT, this Link, this AION. If there's any names that I missed,
well, I should. Yeah, let me preface that.
Maybe we'll post them in the lounge, whatever.
Yeah, I mean TNT is simply one he named.
I've got a class I have to teach here in an hour.
Yeah,
Kevin and I have to do the daily brief recap. So I think we're going to have to wind this up at this today. But we can talk more in the lounge. Maybe PM me the symbols or something along those lines.
Sure, yeah.
I got to figure out if I'm actually presenting to you guys in the Hangout this screen. So I think maybe now you see my screen. Yeah. So anyway, we're just throwing this together. I'm interested in this TNT down here. This looks really interesting. What's going on? So your input is greatly valued. All right, so that's our Friday broadcast. Did you have a closing thought there, sir? Were you just about to say something?
Oh no, just saying thanks, and it's been a pleasure as always. And
all right,
the silver lining of
the back rehab, and by all means, if you have any questions for Colin over the next day or two, feel free to reach out to him.
Cheers,
okay, and you're already getting big thankses, so they're already starting to come in. So, all right, why don't we leave it at that for today? I will see all the level 2ers in about an hour. What are we going to talk about today? I think today we talk about moving averages. So, be sure to get ready for that. We will see. I had a nice meeting with Grim last night. He is on the mend, and he has full plans to be in class on Sunday. And hopefully we can do a nice dovetail of that class with the broiler chickens to make sure that the level 1ers are good to go. All right, everybody, have yourselves a great day. Probably the last thing I'll leave you with, I thought I had it on here, but I might have gotten rid of it. Always asking, is Bitcoin a range or is Bitcoin a trend? What did I do with that chart? Oh, that's too bad. Anyway, I was tweeting it out. It feels like the Rangers are owning the market right now. So, but I seem to have lost it. Boo! Hiss, hiss, boo. All right. Well, we'll leave it at that. Have yourselves a great day, everybody. All the best. Play from a position of strength, right? Don't bite off more than you can chew. And of course, remember what your number one job as traders is. All right, all the best. Thank you again, Colin. Great job. Thank you, Kevin, for keeping us on the straight and narrow. We'll see everybody in class shortly, and bye for now.